Hello and welcome to a humble Highland home. Thank you so much for being with me here today. The weather is very changeable at the moment. It just can't make its mind up. I've been waiting for a dry day to bring in and preserve a large harvest from the kitchen garden, and also to forage for edibles growing wild at this time of year. The onions have got nice soft necks now, so they're ready to be trimmed back and trim off the roots, and I can finish curing them ready for storage. I prefer to do my harvests early in the morning and on a dry day when everything is at its best, but I have to work with nature and also the boundaries of other commitments that I have in my life. This also means that sometimes I have to recognise that some things will run to seed before I can get to pick them. We are eating fresh from the garden just about every day at the moment, but I always plan to put some things away for the colder months ahead. Using the cauliflower leaves to cover over the cauliflower will help to keep it white, and I just use a peg to keep them all in place. There are a lot of things that need my attention in the garden at the moment, like the gathering of the food and also keeping on top of the weeds and clearing the shady area around the back of the polytunnel, which is now blocking out the sun, which I really need to ripen the tomatoes. But we've already had lots of peas, and I think there's still a good harvest yet to come. So today I've had many false starts with the outdoor jobs, so it's time for me to head inside to catch up with a few things in there and make the most of this time to keep our home in order as well as the garden. Every year I try and focus a little bit more on seed saving from the array of fruits, salads, vegetables and flowers that we have on the property. And the aim is to become a little bit more sustainable and independent, closing the food production cycle that Mother Nature provides for us. But just be mindful that some seeds can have a plant breeder's patent on them, and this just protects their investment in research of a particular variety if you were to be selling or sharing any. The seeds that I've saved and dried here are from the Welsh poppy, which grows wild here on the land, and over time they've been left to their own devices and self-seeded year on year, so we have lots of them. I'm going to be sharing some of these seeds with a neighbour, and also I'll be planting them in other areas of the garden to grow wild too. A rainy day is always good to sort out a few neglected areas and to get everything back in order. This is my multi-purpose area where I sew, I craft, I plan, and I do any paperwork. This was once my grandma's old tea caddy, and now it's full to the brim of old buttons, some of which go back to the 1960s and 70s, which came from my grandma's and my mum's wee button stash. Much as I love just to put my coat on and be outside, it does feel good to be able to come back in and focus on clearing some paperwork, decluttering and putting some items away from a previous task. And it's a perfect time for me to tackle my ever-growing pile of sewing. A special little person has been waiting very patiently for me to fix this cozy for her, and she actually thought that I'd given it away to someone else. So I'm glad that I can alleviate her fears and get this back to her with a new lease of life. For most parts, these wee sewing jobs don't take very long to do, and it is good to see something that's been fixed and ready to be used once again. I enjoy the process of mending and making do, and I also like to be able to make something from scratch and often from some recycled material. This was how I was brought up, my mum was brought up, and also my grandparents were brought up. They didn't waste anything. I'm a bit more of a practical person, and IT is not my strong point, but I learn what I need to learn to manage the finances, essential household tasks, and a lot of my paid work is using a computer. But I still keep books in paper format, as I don't like to have to rely on the internet. As we have experienced, it's not always as reliable and can open you up to abuse or control by outside sources. I like to be aware of these things, but I won't be ruled by them, and I keep IT as a resource, but not the only way, which can increase resilience, especially within the current ways of the world. I feel that it's important to keep grounded at this time, as things will only be developed and produced if there is a need for them and money to be made. I like to keep things in balance. It's not often I get a chance to read my book in summertime, especially during the day. So it's nice to make the most of this opportunity to slow down for a wee while and listen to the rain on the window whilst I read my book. Who says we can't have comfort food in summertime? When it's miserable outside, sometimes it's just the thing we need. I am making a red lentil and green tomato soup. And apart from the red lentils, everything has been grown here on the croft. The onions are fresh out of the polytunnel, and the celery, greenscapes and green tomatoes are all frozen from last year. Along with some vegetable stock, this makes a beautiful soup. And whilst the soup is bubbling away on the stove, I'm going to be using up the last of our dock seed flour to make some chocolate brownies, which will be a perfect treat after our soup. And as the weather cools down, it will soon be time to harvest my next batch of dock seeds to make some more dock seed flour for the year ahead. And this is seasonal eating to me. I've made videos before of how I make my dock seed flour and also these chocolate brownies, so I will leave the link to that in the description below. And thank you so much for joining me here today, as I appreciate the joy of a rainy day and everything that it brings. Let's chat in the comments or over on Instagram. But for now, take care of yourself and others, and I'll see you in the next video.